everybody, welcome to the Fired Up with CJ show. We've been talking to Karen Brailsford, and we are on the third part about a conversation of her book, Sacred Landscapes of the Soul, Aligning with the Divine Wherever You Are. I want to loop back to the first segment in which you were talking about your creative process. Generally speaking in life, whether it was when you were a journalist at People Magazine, or currently when you've been writing this book, and it seems like you have a deep relationship with the divine. Tell me a little bit about how that developed. And in the book, there are there's some passages to say God in you and as you. What does that mean? And tell us a little bit about that whole process
Mm,
of your conversations with God.
certainly. As a kid, I always wanted to have a personal relationship with God. It was something that was cultivated, I suppose, by attending the Baptist church that I did. And so I would write out my resolutions for the new year. And number one would always be closer to God. And so I had
Wow.
this idea, yeah, as a kid, I had this idea that that I wanted to have my own connection. My mother was devout, and we were active in this Baptist church that we attended. And I had witnessed all kinds of goings on in this church in terms of how spirit would move through her physically. I mean, she'd be, you know, prostrate on the floor, and
Wow.
this very regal and very somewhat shy person. And so I knew that there was a power that if it could have her, in that position, which I knew that she herself would not want to be of her own accord, I knew that this thing existed. And so I wanted some of that. And I wanted, it never happened to me when I was growing up. Um, in this church, and I'd seen it happen to so many other people, not just my mother. And so it sort of happened for me when I got to LA and I went to an acupuncturist.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was surprising. I thought you were going to say agape.
No,
Michael, no, okay, that's surprising. So
it
tell
was
me what
connected
happened.
though. No sooner had the acupuncturist inserted the needles into me, I felt this energy. I felt this flow and I started to tremble, and it was very reminiscent of what I'd seen in this church. And so I said to the acupuncturist, "Oh," she didn't seem to be that surprised. And I remember asking her, "So do you work with spirit?" Because not only was I moving and in this way, I was also singing. I was singing these childhood songs that were coming out of me in
Oh,
this very
wow.
spontaneous way. So it was a profound experience.
Yeah,
And
you had like a spiritual, rapturous, ecstatic experience.
right, on the
Wow.
acupuncturist table. And so I
Wow.
whispered to her, "So do you work with spirit?" And she said, "Well," and she actually said, "Well, I do, but I don't tell people that's what I'm doing." So, but it came up obviously for me that this is what she was doing. And so she was the one who mentioned agape, because I said to her, "I've been wanting to find a spiritual center. I really feel as if the universe has been trying to tap me on the shoulder. I've had
Mm.
three successive car accidents. Granted, I was a New Yorker and had
Right.
only just learned how to drive. But the final accident really was just so bizarre in terms of how it happened. Um, People got out of their cars and they were like, "It seems like he was meant to hit you." It was that kind of bizarre kind of thing.
Oh no.
And the man's name was Good, Good. So anyway, this led me I'm very open to seeing signs from the universe. I'm like, you don't have to tell me twice. Well, maybe thrice because it was the third accident. And so when I mentioned that I was looking for a spiritual center because it did seem like the universe was trying to tell me something, she mentioned agape. And so I did go to agape and I did have an ecstatic um, experience there, although no one else around me was having that experience. It's not something that I
Yeah.
really see or have witnessed since then. And believe you me, I felt very uncomfortable having that experience there. But clearly, that's what God, as I call it, or the divine or the universe was kind of spirit was having flow through me. And so in my some of the passages, as you alluded to, are um, dialogues that come straight from God, as if this animate spirit or energy is speaking directly to me. And so those pieces have been signed God in you and as you. And the idea
Mm.
is that God isn't something outside of us, that it is this energy that has its way, lives its life as our very being. So I'm a divine expression of this power. You are a divine expression of this power. And that it delights. It delights when we say yes to it, when we show up as a creative force, as a force for love and giving, and that we are beneficial presences on the planet, that this is its intention. And so it divinely expresses and uniquely expresses through each and every one of us. So hence that signature, God in and as you.
Mm. Okay, so the pieces that were kind of given to you through this process are signed as God in you and as you, so that you can kind of distinguish it from other pieces which had a similar, probably creative process, but had a very kind of, it wasn't it. So I know that I've worked with people like Paul Selig, who is someone who channels, and he's very specific about noting what is him and what is not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily him, and not even editing at all or very much some of the pieces that come directly as a download. Um, so when you've been speaking to God lately, what is the wisdom that you're hearing about the world of today? And, some of the things that, one of the things that you can uniquely speak to is the Black Lives Matters. And I'm wondering, Black Lives Matter, I'm wondering what, like during that time, which I'm sure was very hard for you, and if you're okay sharing with it, I mean, what was the hopeful message that you got?
Hmm. So when you're meaning specifically in terms of what's been happening with regards to uh, race and racism in this country right now. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, well, I will first say that what I hear, the message I hear with regards to everything, which is, I feel almost, how would I describe it? I'm just going to say it. I'm always hearing all is well.
Hmm.
I wake up in the morning and I hear all is well. I may have just looked at, some news report that feels dire or we've all experienced loss. My own cousin um, transitioned from COVID some months ago. I know friends of friends and family members who've had COVID. Um, I watched George Floyd's memorials and was moved by them and riveted by them and felt I meant to be here watching this on the television and holding the space for what is happening.
Mm-hmm.
And so throughout everything, the earthquake, we had an earthquake here in Los Angeles that woke me up. Was that about a week ago, I guess? And I knew that this was a pretty sizable one. It really caused my heart to race. I always hear underneath it all is well. And that might
Mm.
feel contradictory to some, but for me, it's reassuring that there is this power and this presence that's telling me, peace be still, in other words, all is well. And so I do believe that everything is working together for our highest good. So if I believe that, I'm also aware that I, Karen, am like, what the heck? What is he doing? What is this person doing? What is going on? This all seems like craziness. I'm not trying to say that I'm not human, but underneath it all, I'm anchored by this awareness that all is well. I hear it all the time. I hear those
Mm.
three words all the time. And so it keeps me rooted, it keeps me sane, it brings me to center.
I love it. And the weird thing is I think you're the second person this week that I've talked to that says that they just repeat that over and over again. So it must
Yeah.
be, yeah, so um, it's not just you. I mean, it's something that is in the Bible, right? I don't even know, but I feel like
Mm.
it's like some biblical statement as well. I don't really know. I'm probably making things up because I really have no experience or have ever read the Bible, but um, I love that all is well, and I
All is
think
well.
that
And
is
this
the
is
key.
not airy fairy. This is not a sense of like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna skip through the, through the tulips and think like, oh, I'm just gonna pretend that what's happening is not happening. No, it's really important to be aware of what's happening, and at the same time to come to this place of feeling centered regardless of what's happening. And that's a practice.
Yeah,
It's
it
a
is.
practice. It's a practice. You mentioned the tools that you use. Um, Whatever works for you, I think it's really important now to breathe.
Yeah.
That's a big one of mine as well.
I think that, I always have to remind myself that it's to be authentically in whatever experience and accept what is and is happening and aligning to it and recognizing that we create our own suffering as well. I mean, we don't have to suffer. We can just be with what is and accept it
Hmm.
as what it is. But what we normally do is we judge, we wonder, we think, we create catastrophic stories, and that creates suffering. And that can be cut out of the story,
Right,
cut
right,
out of the whole process.
right. Suffering is very different from pain,
Yeah.
right? I mean, we're going to experience pain, but suffering is when we decide to glom onto it,
Yeah.
hold on
Add on.
to
Add on our own little story to
it.
it. All right, we've been talking to Karen Brailsford during these three segments about her book, Sacred Landscapes of the Soul, Aligning with the Divine Wherever You Are. Can you hold up your beautiful book?
Yes, I will.
Thank you so much for being here.
It means so much to me that you're listening to the show. Would love your support in any way by giving me comments below or to subscribe to the show or share the show with friends. Thank you again for your support. Love and blessings.